All right, welcome back to our videos on how to do a particular research using a particular framework. In the past, I have guided you guys how to use the framework of Hymes, particularly the linguistic competence concept, and we apply that on in evaluating a particular piece of communication. And we also use Himes's discourse competence as our basis or framework in evaluating a similar text because we wanted to find out if the person or the company was demonstrating discourse competence. So we learn about that. Now, this time I'd like to provide you a different example. This one is a YouTube video, an interview with actress Alma Moreno, conducted by Karen Davila. Now, I want us to watch and listen because this time we're going to apply maybe some of the competences. Let's say we would like to apply all the four. And in analyzing this video, we will be able to find out if the four competences were actually demonstrated either or both, either of the two, or both Karen Davila and Alma Moreno. Okay, are you ready? So what we're going to do is we're going to watch this video first for a few seconds or maybe a few minutes, and then we'll try to evaluate if any one of them is demonstrating or not demonstrating any of those competences. Okay?
Really, when it comes to like being a counselor, it's fair to say that you've done your best and you've achieved a lot. I mean, being a national chairperson and first female president. Now, why run for the Senate? Frankly, you could have run for, let's say, Congress, or you could have run for mayor or even vice mayor. But why run for the Senate?
Okay, we stop there. For example, we are now applying the four competences because we are using all four, not just one. But this time in evaluating this particular oral text, we would like to determine if indeed there was a demonstration of the four. So we'll begin with the words or the sentences or the utterances of Karen Davila. Now, let's begin with linguistic. Did she have correct grammar? We might want to say check. Was she clear in terms of discourse in her speaking and the flow of ideas? Were they organized, logical? Probably you would say check. The pronunciation, no problem, so you say check. So there was linguistic, there was discourse, discourse competence. But then listen again to her words. Let's repeat.
I mean, being a national chairperson and first female president. Now, why run for the Senate? Frankly, you could have run for, let's say, Congress, or you could have run for mayor or even vice mayor. But why run for the Senate?
Okay, what did you notice there? Karen Davila is linguistically competent, right? And she demonstrates discourse competence here in our example. But try to listen to the statement, some of the statements she said, you could have run for mayor, vice mayor, and even congressman or congresswoman. And then she goes with this bomb or bombshell. But why run for the Senate? Now, what do we use there? We no longer use the linguistic competence framework because we're done. We won't use the discourse competence because we have already said, okay, she's fine with those two. But we now move on to the socio-cultural competence. In other words, we define socio-cultural competence depending on how we understood it based on Hymes, or maybe we even expound it a little bit more. Let's say our parameters are this, that you follow the norms in conversation or interview, you have to be sensitive, you have to be professional, etc. She's professional, but was she sensitive? Probably you should not be offensive, right? Remember, we learned in our lesson about cooperative principle that we learned from H.P. Grice. In conversation, like an interview, like this news interview, there is turn taking, and there's respect, there's mutual respect, supposed to be, and there is cooperation. And in the theory of Brown and Levinson, there's politeness. Now, if we add politeness here, okay, and cooperation, let's say we're adding them here, politeness and cooperation based on um, those experts, as we define now socio-cultural competence, is Karen Davila demonstrating socio-cultural competence, because she is insinuating here that Alma Moreno has no right, or had no right, to run for the Senate because it's a high office, right? High position. And she is also insinuating, if we evaluate, that Alma Moreno, you're not fit to be a senator. You could run, rhetorically speaking. The questions were pregnant with a lot of, implicatures, right? Or implications. She was implying that Alma Moreno was not, or is not, competent enough, and should not be, and does not have all the credentials to run for a higher office like that of a senator. But she should content herself to running for the mayor, vice mayor, or even congresswoman. That's what she's saying. Now, question: is that socio-culturally acceptable? Maybe in this interview, it's quite okay, because you have to be honest, you have to be open, because you're running for public office, etc. But if we just evaluate the context, the text itself, we would see that there was a lack of sensitivity, or there was an offense there. I would find it, if I were Alma Moreno, I would be offended. It would be offensive to me. Okay. What about strategic competence? We don't see that yet. We know the definition of strategic competence based on what we have studied, like one of which is being able to address a communication issue and then repair that problem or noise or whatever problem you have in the communication. So let's just say we did not see any strategic, but we saw three. What's the first one? Linguistically, she was competent. Discourse, she was competent. But socio-cultural, she was not competent. Why? Because she was offensive based on the cooperative principle that we have learned under socio-cultural idea, and politeness. So she was not polite. Therefore, we would say she was not socio-culturally competent. Let's move on to the answer of Alma Moreno.
Unang-una, hindi ko plinano talagang tumakbo as senator. Sa Parañaque rin, hindi ko plinano mag-mayor, mag-vice mayor, mag-councilor, because lahat kakampi. Sa akin kasi, pag mas more sa pagkakaibigan, more on parang pamilya ko. Like ang mayor namin, Edwin Olivares, ka-team ko. The congressman is Eric Olivares, ka-team ko. So, wala talaga. And hindi ko inisip talaga na tatakbo ko. Maraming nagsasabi sa akin, like sa liga namin, bakit di ka tumakbo? Ang tagal mo na. Sabi ko, hindi pwedeng desisyon ng kaagad yan. One, Karen, dasal. Give me sign.
What was the sign?
Okay. What did you notice? Of course, we have a lot of respect for the public official, right? Former public official and actress. We're just for the sake of evaluation. What did you see here? Let's begin with the linguistic competence. We notice that Karen Davila used the English language, and in this interview, of course, you are expected to, because this is an English program. So she was expected to use the English language. So what happened? So maybe 98%, 95% of the content, it's in Filipino. Nothing wrong, okay? Nothing wrong with that. But we love our language, right? We love Filipino. The point here is that if the expectation is that you use a particular language because of your particular audience that you're trying to reach and the nature of the program, then it is expected that you use that language, which is English, although there's nothing wrong with that. But since we are evaluating linguistic competence, we would say that the guest, Miss Moreno, that's her, problem. There was a problem with linguistic competence. In other words, she could not really express herself in the English language. So if you cannot put together words in the English language, you cannot come up with complete sentences in the English language, then you would agree with me that the person is not, competent in that aspect. So because we're using that as a standard, we're not criticizing, but we are trying to evaluate based on the standard of Hymes. Okay, we would want to be very sensitive. Now, we were also listening. The question is very straightforward. Why run for the Senate? The question should be, I'm running for the Senate because of this reason, or maybe I have these credentials. Now, what did we have? Aside from the linguistic competence issue here that I see, there's a problem with discourse competence. In other words, it takes a while for us to understand what the guest is trying to articulate. I mean, she said, "Hindi ko naman pinlano." I did not plan. So it doesn't really sync or connect with the question. The question is, why run? So if you did not really plan to run, why run? Okay. But the point there is, a person who is being interviewed should be armed with, the expected answers. They have to be ready with the answers. So in terms of strategic competence here and discourse competence, we see some problems. Okay, so discourse, the explanations were not clear. There were many concepts here and there. It's like it's not straightforward answer. It took a while. It takes a while for us to understand what Miss Moreno is trying to say. Aside from the fact that, let's say you're not well versed in Filipino, then probably that will add to the discourse competence issue. You can't, But anyway, the point here is the long answer, and then the inclusion of so many disjointed ideas into that particular answer demonstrates that there's a problem of discourse competence there, because the flow of ideas, the logical flow of expression, etc., were not as as we should expect from a person who is discourse competent, right? What about strategic competence? We said that strategic competence is your ability, one of our definition or descriptions, is that your ability to address a problem, communication problem, maybe a gap or misunderstanding, noise, etc. In this case, the guest, Miss Moreno, was not able to address the question really. And so her failure to connect or to address the question demonstrates somehow, so that would be my interpretation as a researcher, demonstrates that there was a problem with not just discourse and linguistic, but there was a problem with strategic competence, because she was not able to address a communication problem. The communication problem there was a need for input, a good input, a clear input, but the need for the clear input was not provided by her. At least 100%, maybe I would say 70, 60%. At the outset, I was not able to get it. I would be very straightforward and say, well, I used to be this person and I had this experience and I know I can deliver something. I have exposure in this and I'm learning a new thing. I've been learning things in public office, etc. So I know I am capable of serving the country as a senator. Okay, like there are many senators who are from the showbiz. And they have been, some of them, not all, a few of them have been able to deliver and they have been doing well. So maybe that would have been a good answer, a demonstrate. I'm not saying I have the best answers, but that's just my example. I'm saying that that could have been a that would have been a good answer in terms of discourse competence and in addressing a communication issue or problem. There was a communication issue there, in a way, or there's a need, and it has to be satisfied, and it was not satisfied based on our understanding. Probably others would not agree, but this is how we see it. Now, let's move on to the fourth, or the other one, the third actually, socio-cultural. What are our parameters when we determine socio-cultural competence? If a person is, being cooperative, they are polite, etc., depending on what you want to set for yourself as your standards. So let's say it's just the cooperation and being polite, etc. We could say that Miss Moreno is very friendly, very cordial, polite, and she was very cooperative. So among the four, what was her strength? What is her strength? Her strength is socio-cultural. But the other three, specifically linguistic and discourse, those were her problems. So this is how we evaluate or examine if, based on that particular concept or theory, the communicative competence. And you can pick any material, of course, subject to the approval of your advisor or your teacher. If they say, okay, that's a good material, or those are good texts or materials, then go ahead, use those, and then evaluate them based on this framework. You always have to go back. Remember, guys, you always have to go back to the framework because this is your guide. Your main concern really is not the text. It's partly, it's just incidental because you can choose any other text. Your focus is using this particular framework in evaluating whether this framework, for example, these competences are being demonstrated in the text in question, or in this case, this recorded video. So I hope that helped you, and you can practice. You can do the same thing. Use any concept, the politeness theory by Brown and Levinson, the maxims by H.P. Grice, the speaking model by Hymes, or the SMCR model by Berlo. You can use all available theories, even the model, for example, of Aristotle, the model of communication, and use that as a standard in evaluating a certain content. And voila, you have, is that the right word? You have the material, or you have the research paper. So normally that's what you do. You have a framework, you have a concept, and then you use that as a basis in evaluating a particular content, just like this YouTube video or recorded interview by Karen Davila with Alma Moreno. If you have any questions, you'll let me know. Thank you guys for watching.